Hello, today I'm going to talk about disclosing today's non-economy. First part. Okay, so what is the content? The first thing, what economy even is? What is the definition of economy? And secondly, about non-economy in detail. What is happening today? Why the world is such as it is? So let's go step by step. So to begin, have you ever verified the definition of the word economy in a dictionary? For your homework, check the definition of the word economy and you realize that the word money is very rarely used. Well, in some of these dictionaries, there is more of the use, the money is more frequently used, and in others, very little or none. In a Slovenian web dictionary that I found, actually, I haven't found the word money in it. Isn't this odd? No, it's not odd since the word economy has no direct connection with the monetary system. In fact, the key arguments in the definition are speaking by themselves, especially that economy is relating to human activities concerned with the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. So they emphasize the production processes and services that should ensure the proper allocation of raw materials, technology, workforce, and energy resources. So they emphasize the high efficiency or the savings of raw materials and energy resources. But today the economy is so intertwined with the monetary system, actually for many centuries it became a new habit. But the present economy that is under the pressure of the monetary system is not economical at all. For example, just browse online on how much fuel is consuming a jet airliner, and this just for the moving from the terminal to the runway, so for taxing. You may be surprised how much gallons of fuel, and you may also be surprised when you discover how many miles travels the food from its source to your mouth. The food that you eat coming from the other side of the world. Yes, today's economy is very uneconomical, inefficient, anti-savings, and consequently very non-ecological. So in this lecture, I'll explain in detail the impact of the monetary system onto the monetary economy, which is influencing our everyday life. Simultaneously, I will also gradually introduce to you the economy based on natural resources. This means the natural economy, or in other words, the non-monetary economy. But more on this in the lectures to come. So, about non-economy. To begin, for the monetary economy applies that it requires a constant consumption irrespective of the actual human needs. Because if people want to survive in the monetary economy, they have to keep their jobs in order to make money circulating, flowing. Although we don't need a great number of unnecessary or perishable products and services. This was already shown soon after the Industrial Revolution and even more later when the production strongly outgrew the basic human needs. So in order that this monetary economy is working, it requires a constant consumption so that people have jobs and that the money is flowing. And even if you don't need a great deal of these uh, products or services. But the first biggest opponent of the monetary economy is sustainability. The fact that our today's products often perishable and ineffective, it is even desirable because it encourages the buying of new products. And in this way, companies can further gain money through the customer services too. Because if you would have extremely high quality products in where it would, for example, a product of white goods lasted for 50 years, let's say a washing machine, then it wouldn't be there enough sales for today's greedy system. The sales would increase just due to the population growth, and this is not enough. And if we would have extreme high quality products, then we also wouldn't need any warranty. Next. Next, most of today's products are also difficult to repair or even repairable. For instance, the electronics, so that we have to throw away a product and purchase a new one. The modern electronics also became very quickly technologically obsolete, so that we again often throw away still working products. In addition, the electronics companies are even intentionally using the already somewhat obsolete products, since they have in their sleeve more aces or technical improvements, but which are not incorporated in one product, but rather gradually in the form of different versions of the almost same product, which is primarily known in the computer industry. In the case of today's modern electronics, there is also too little possibility for hardware updating, which again leads to the increased consumption and pollution. Well, for example, our desktop personal computers are an exception to a certain extent, because these desktop computers are very, let's say, user-friendly and friendly for the nature, eco-friendly, because you can practically change everything, update everything, the hardware. This computer, the new laptops, are very difficult to repair and let's say to change a disk and or a RAM and so on. So, and for example, also if you take a computer graphics card, these improvements are not integrated in one big leap of technology, but subsequently in small leaps. Uh, this means that new version graphics are coming out months per month, every month, and just to sell them. Okay, further, many products are also containing harmful materials and are assembled in such a way that it cannot be recycled. While, on the other side, the true economy is environmentally friendly, it is planned and systematic in order not to deplete the limited natural resources and to unnecessarily pollute the planet. In fact, nature is always harmonizing things out, even if some kind of species has to extinct, including the human species. So, all the technology that is available today for us is rather a burden for nature than a help for us if it is not properly used. And all the healthy technology is also losing its importance if it's not freely available to all the inhabitants of planet Earth, free of charge. This is non-monetary economy. Further, but just as it is sustainability, the enemy of the monetary economy, so it also abundance. This means that a certain type of product shouldn't be in abundance because then it loses its value, like the inflation leads to the devaluation of money. Like I said in the previous lectures, when there is too much money, it becomes to this devaluation of money. It has no value. Thus, the monetary economy is often an upside down word. It often has value what is rare and not life necessary. And this leads to subsequently to the disruption in the valuation of goods, um, which is seen in the extremities, like with the exceptional value of diamonds and gold in comparison with the essential necessity of life, such as food and clothing. This is also very evident in the renowned brands of clothing, where you get for a lot of money, for a lot more money, just a slightly better quality or not at all. Or in the automotive industry, where they are selling super expensive cars that can be afforded only by a few people. But pay attention, if they were such super expensive cars ordered by a large number of people, by many millions of people, then they would be due to the high scale production significantly cheaper, a lot cheaper. However, this isn't the way how these companies are working, as this would create the inflation of such cars. The desirability of such cars would fall more than obvious. A person with such a car would lose a part of his imaginary self, of this ego. Uh, the ego puffed up, it's puffing up where you have something that is very rare, that other people uh, don't have this. So, so further, um, what is keeping the market price is the rarity of certain goods and a high enough demand. Well, a disorder in the evaluation of goods is also reflected in our behavior toward the air, the water, and the soil. We are abundant in air so that it has no value, and we are therefore polluting it, simply because it is in abundance. Globally speaking, It is similar for drinking water and the nutritious soil. Well, it depends from country to country, but in general, it is so. Thus, in the case of the basic natural resources, air, water, soil, etc., that are many in abundance, it is also happening the intentional pollution, so that they become consequently rarer and profitable. Uh, as you can see, the monetary economy lost the profit and not so much the customer and his well-being. Like I said, it is happening the intentional pollution so that they become consequently rare and profitable. They pollute air or water, and so they sell these neutralizers of air, these diverse filters of water, and so on. Further, the monetary economy also supports competition. Even the animals within the same species aren't so competition oriented as the human species, and this just because we were raised so in elementary school. Thus, competition leads to constant battles with competitors and prices, so that the cost of production of services must be as low as possible. Of production or services, it can go for services or products. So that, including the workforce, the employers like cheap workforce, which leads also to poor quality of products and services. Due to competition, also the employers care a little about the unemployed ones, because if they would, then they wouldn't provide only products and services, but an immediate employment. Thus, the struggle for survival has become nothing unusual in today's society. And the competition between the various competitors is also bringing the emergence of cartels and the subsequent monopols that are depriving the small companies. The monetary economy also leads to immorality. Can you even imagine a seller who would criticize his products and advise the customer to visit the store on the other side of the road because it has better products? No, he cannot do that since he would lose his job. So, the seller must therefore lie to be immoral if he wants to survive. So, this is a fight for survival, a great attachment to money. And the immorality of the monetary system is frequently reflected in lobbying. What exactly lobbying is? I didn't know what was lobbying until some years ago, even if this term is very used in the daily news. Lobbying is the effort of two or more individuals, groups, or establishments in order to ensure their interests that can much deviate from the interests of the masses of people, country, citizens. For example, the lobbying may occur between the Ministry of Education and a book publisher, and in such a way that the ministry introduces a new subject in the elementary schooling, so that the publisher issues the new literature, which is naturally sold, while a share is allocated to the ministry itself. Well, today, uh, so both sides have some income. They they have power, these elites, these publishers connected with ministry, government. Practically, they can do everything. They convince us that we need a certain literature in school. Well, today's lobbying is, as they say, a part of democracy, although it is taking place behind the curtain and not in the public eye. The interest of the lobbyists can be also good, but most often they are intended only for the benefit of their own group, where it can exist even bribery. As you can see, the boundary between the good and lobbying and corruption is very thin. It's taking place behind the curtain. It's not in the public eye. Further, the monetary economy also leads to inequality and subsequently to psychological stress. Psychosocial stress, more precisely said, psychosocial stress. The psychosocial stress is causing the inhabitants a lot of trouble, most notably in the agglomerations of settlements where the rich and poor are living closely together. If you saw, if you have seen, I think in Brazil, there are some settlements uh, there can, where rich and poor are living closer together. In between can be just a wall, or even this, uh, or even without a wall. And so this is not good, because one side is seeing the other, and so it can come to this enviousness and so on. Mhm. The inequality is thus represented the division of people by classes or castes. The greatest inequality is causing the greatest psychological stress, which is reflecting the lack of confidence in people, further in the high level of mental and emotional patience, in the increasing prevalent use of drugs, in the increasing crimes on prisoners, in the higher suicidal rate, in the worse learning process, in the small number of inventions and innovations, in the higher level of teenage pregnancies, in the higher level of infant passages, in the higher number of obese people, and ultimately in the shorter lifespan. These are scientific facts, I mean, uh, analyzes how it influences this psychosocial stress our life, especially if the poor and rich are living closely together. So this is not good. Actually, the monetary economy is causing almost all forms of crimes. Further, also the GDP, or the gross domestic product, says nothing about the real contentment rate of the citizens in a country. So if a country has a higher GDP, this still doesn't mean that are the residents much more satisfied there. On the other side, there is evidence that people are more satisfied in countries with more equality. I think that in one country, at least in one country, hmm, I think it is Bhutan. Bhutan. They have not a, beside the GDP, they also have another form of this coefficient, which is measuring the contentment of the inhabitants. And I think that there people are having a very high this. I mean, they are very happy regardless of the conditions of life, regardless of the GDP. So the GDP can be very small, low, but the contentment of the inhabitants can be very high. So this is interesting and important. Further, in the monetary economy, even the humanitarian institutions have huge difficulties in reducing poverty and providing basic human needs. In the short-term run, they can alleviate poverty, which is better than nothing, but this cannot work out in the long term because the monetary economy needs shortage. As I said in previous lectures, this system mechanism of working monetary system needs poor people in order to even operate. So everything you are doing inside this system, you cannot avoid poverty, at least in some countries, because the richer countries are living on the expense of poor countries. Another example: why is this country Monaco so, let's say, why so rich? Practically, they are producing nothing, no products. Some products here and there. They have a lot of services, but what services? Casinos, where there is a lot of money. So people are coming into Monaco, they are bringing money for other countries, and it stays there. So they have a lot of money, but they are producing practically nothing, no products, just some services to. And this is a very simple gaining of money. How to become rich? To have a lot of casinos, let's say stock exchange, lotteries, and so on. But this cannot work in the long run for everyone to have equality, because we must have products, good products, ecological products, and let's say cheap and good services. If there is nothing to buy, the pile of money that you have will remain there. So, in the short term run, they can alleviate poverty, these humanitarian institutions, which is better than nothing, but this cannot work out in the long term run because the monetary economy needs shortage. Thus, the donation of money to charities is only a short term solution that is going to leave in the long run many more people and children to their passage, to death, as it would instead switch we to the natural economy, to the non monetary economy. Also, because there is no profit in poverty, we don't know any war against poverty, but we well know the war against crime, the war against contagious diseases, and the war against drugs. And simply because there is money. So in drugs there is money, uh, even if they how can I say this? Even if they get these drugs from these cartels, let's say, the police, what is happening then with these drugs? They can be sold without the masses know it. And even in warfare, there is money. There are a lot of loans, but poor people have no money, so there is no business. This is working so. And even in diseases, in a war against contagious diseases, there is um, there is money because they can sell these vaccines and so on, medicines, drugs. And if that isn't enough, in the monetary economy can become some humanitarian institution even under the influence of people who care a little for those who have much less. So better thing to do is to give, rather than to give money to charities, is to give material things, food, clothing, books, uh, the things that you don't need. Further, even in legislation, we can discover the greatest oddities of today's dehumanized society, because if we look deeper or higher, we see in its core the monetary system and its economy. In fact, most of the laws or regulations are created solely for profit. The most of profit is generated when people are breaking the laws, first, but also, secondly, also by simply selling the laws or codes, these regulations. And some countries are gaining huge amounts of money just by selling the codes. For example, in the US, which also means that you cannot know what you're breaking until you buy the code or regulation. Interesting, isn't it? So, okay, more or less you know what has not to be break, but a lot of things you don't know. This more complex law regulations. Anyway, if people would be spiritually awakened or enlightened, then they would avoid the creating of codes or regulation for sanctioning the transgressions that are the reflection of today's disharmonic systems, and they would instead create laws or regulations as conditions that to the use of these sanctions wouldn't even occur. So we would act mainly on prevention rather than on sanctioning. In any case, all the troubles or difficulties cannot be prevented today, but the majority yes, since most of the laws or regulations are the consequence of today's monetary economy itself. Thus, the growing number of laws or regulations testify the fact that we cannot or do not want to face up with the essence, that is, to come together and sincerely say to each other why someone violated or a specific code or regulation, where is the cause, and then to consider how this can be prevented. If we discover and address the causes of social difficulties, then most of the laws or regulations become simply irrelevant. And now I will mention some of these examples. Very practical. Because these today's laws regulations are very intertwined in the monetary system, money. For example, does really deserve a ticket someone who often exceeds the speed limit? Well, maybe the country needs a racetrack, while the driver races a car for free. Further, should be someone absolutely imprisoned or held in a mental hospital if he raped someone? Well, maybe if was the rapist himself abused in his childhood, while the country should introduce radical changes in the educational system, starting with the primary school education and later with education for new parents. There are the causes. There are the causes located. And further, Should be someone really sanctioned if he is drinking alcohol and rampaging through the city? Well, perhaps he previously wasn't an alcoholic, but he became because he has been severely disappointed with the current social system and was unable to show it otherwise. There is the cause. Or should be a drunk driver absolutely imprisoned if he has caused a traffic accident with fatalities? Well, maybe he just needed a free taxi drive home. A free taxi ride home. There is the cause. And 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 even the first cause is why he is drinking. Okay, but again, like in the previous case, he is satisfied with today's system, more or less. The next example, and do you think that in the case of a mother who in a grocery store stole food for her child really deserves a sanction? Well, maybe it was the mother without any money and she just did what she knew best, feeding her baby. Just any mother would do that if she wouldn't previously commit a suicide. To such mothers, they should simply give food and not even sanction them for their distress. So now you know where are the causes, and so we have to work there. And even I will give you just an extreme example: the Ten Commandments of the Bible. For example, don't lie or don't steal. But is this the cause, or is this the consequence? The cause is why are you lying. The cause is why are you stealing. This is because of our alignment, some absolute definitions and beliefs. So there is the cause. So this is a bad prevention if you take the Ten Commandments. If you not address the real causes and change them. This can work for a certain amount of time, but people, even if they don't lie and steal, they can be inside very restless, and they can make suicide. So we have to pay attention where are the causes. Thus, to all the people who have, for example, difficulties living from day to day, it will be necessary to help them as soon as possible. For example, to unite them into collectives where they could, on a sufficiently large piece of land, cultivate fruit, vegetables, and breed livestock. But not just for themselves, but also for other inhabitants. They could also manufacture a variety of other material goods for the benefit of all. Such collectives should also have an independent power supply that will take the advantage of solar and wind energy, and they should also have their own source of drinking water. As you can see, we can solve every issue if we step out of the well-known framework of thinking. For example, now when you are at this agency for employment and you're not employed, you get this money support, but you are just there, staying at home. If you're not doing something with yourself, with your life, it's more or less empty for the society. So it would be good to that these people would do something in these collectives that I mentioned as an option. Further, let's go further. Further, in the monetary economy are welcomed even the crises or recessions, and this you already know. But have you ever wondered what has actually changed in companies from the time where there was no crisis to the time when a crisis came? Well, if we exclude the money flow and the unemployment, so what has changed if we exclude the money flow and the unemployment in crisis or recessions? Well, actually nothing has changed since the factories, the machines, the technology, and the raw materials are still there on Earth. Also, the energy is still there because it hasn't been destroyed any dam or it hasn't exploded any thermal power plant. So, if I would think within the framework of the monetary economy, then I would, in the time of crisis, advise you to open the company's gates and go to work, and in particular to consume again. and then the flow of money and abundance would once again flow. So there is fear. In this crisis recession, there is fear. And so people are not buying, and so the companies are not selling. And also the raw materials are not flowing to the companies. Fear. But this fear is imposed by this matrix, the leadership of the hierarchy, by the media. Okay, now we have the last slide. However, here will perhaps someone say, in regard to this economy, today's economy, non-economy, but the Germans do not have such troubles with recessions because they always find a way out. So how is this possible? Like I said already, this is true, but the fact is that this country is so successful not only on the account of knowledge and technology, but mainly at the expense of cheap workforce around the world, mainly from Asia and also Eastern Europe, where my country Slovenia is not excluded, like Germany and other countries, rich countries. In fact, for example, why are these countries so rich? In fact, in the company where I was employed in Slovenia, and this is not a rich country, we were producing also high quality electronic components at extremely low selling prices for the renowned German and American brands. So today's high quality products are made up of many components or sub-assemblies which are manufactured mainly in the countries from Asia and Eastern Europe, where there is cheap workforce and even cheap raw materials. Without this, the richer countries wouldn't be able to keep the high sales with the high quality products at reasonable prices, as well as a high GDP and the related country's reputation in the world. So they are importing cheap workforce and raw materials, and even if they are not importing cheap workforce, they have branches of companies in the other side of the world, so that they are producing cheap but high quality products that are sold then in Germany at high prices. So rich country, poor countries. Monetary economy needs poor people in order to operate. We cannot be all successful, financially successful in this world. Amen. We cannot be successful in this world, every one of us. If you're very successful, you're living at the expense of other people. Financially successful, I mean. So, define to be successful. Define this word successful in another way. I'm successful because I am the master of my life, because I'm happy, because I do what I like, and so on. This is the new successful. To be successful. So this is the new success. So this is the new definition of success today, which is less tied to money. And still in the context of this Germany and other rich countries, but Germany could also not stay on such a high level if it hasn't been importing all the necessary raw materials, especially the minerals and fossil fuels that it doesn't have or doesn't have enough. I didn't know that Germany has some oil fields. Yes, it has some, but this is not enough for Germany because the consumption is high. So they are importing oil from other countries. And if we cut this oil from other countries, then what will happen? What is going to happen to Germany? So we are all connected. As you can see, we are all connected and codependent. I think that the previous, I'll mention this here. Just before during the Second World War, the U.S. cut oil to Japan, and even other things. And so they attacked Pearl Harbor. So we are all connected and related. I think that the previous paragraphs are more than enough to show you how is the monetary system destabilizing the economy and dehumanizing our society. But as I have said, we don't lack workforce, diligence, knowledge, technology, and natural resources in this world to start living a life full of abundance. In fact, we have even too much of this technology, and even good technology, but it's not sparse through the world. it's available just for some people. This is the issue. The decision on whether to switch to the natural economy is like on ourselves, but the change is certainly more than welcome. It is practically just a matter of time. And I'm going to explain in the next lectures more about this. What is the natural economy, how it's working, and so on. What you can do as an individual, and so on. Well, this is all for today. The next time is the second part. I'm going to talk about this daily hypnosis by the media, about the reverse solving method, very cunning method, and something more. Okay, have fun, nice day, and bye bye.